Kia ora and welcome back, everybody. In this episode, I'm going to be reacting to Australian Special Air Service Regiment operator Mark Donaldson, VC, Victoria Cross winner. He earned, obviously, his Victoria Cross before RS. I've done a video already to Ben Robert-Smith's Victoria Cross interview that he had, and I'm now going to jump into this one with Mark Donaldson. It goes for just under 9 minutes, so let's jump in.
Well, now, Trooper Mark Donaldson risked his life during a firefight with the Taliban to save a mate's life.
Very quickly, sorry. Apologies for the quality of the video. It's the maximum that I could get it to show up at on YouTube was 360. So that's the only option that it's got there. So, yeah, if it's a bit pixelated or grainy, that's why. Apologies about that.
He was awarded the prestigious Victoria Cross for outstanding bravery. This is his story.
On my command, wait, fire now.
It's combat and it's war, and you know, sometimes you don't know when someone's going to shoot at you. You can hear it coming past, you can see it kicking up in the dirt next to you. He was just another bloke who was in that convoy, and you know, I think you don't leave anyone behind, so.
Very just direct, matter of fact, like he's not trying to, I'm sure everybody can see that, he's not trying to pretend to be anything more than what he is. He's just an awesome soldier who was doing his job on the day, is how I'm sure he'll frame it. It's been many, many years since I watched this as well. Again, watched it with a lot of pride and admiration for Mark in terms of being awarded the VC and just his actions, his courage, his bravery, and obviously that of his teammates as well. But in particular, clearly Mark's stuck out a heck of a lot to his team members, to his patrol commander, all that sort of stuff. And no doubt to the interpreter, was an interpreter that he went back and carried and rescued as well. So awesome.
Trooper Mark Donaldson awarded the Victoria Cross for Australia.
29 years old, one of the SAS elite. Last September, this secret soldier survived an Afghan bloodbath.
I guess I was lucky. I was lucky I didn't get hit, and you know, you just do your training, you're a soldier, you do your job, and 50-50, you know, sometimes you get hit, sometimes you don't.
Now, one short Canberra ceremony and he's someone else. Trooper Mark Donaldson becomes Trooper Mark Donaldson, VC, marked forever by a small bronze cross set on crimson cloth.
It's a really a great honour for Mark, and you know, it's an honour for me to be married to him, really.
He has a loving wife, Emma, and baby Kaylee, and he has the respect of the most powerful in the land. By tradition, even the top brass, including the head of the Defence Forces, Air Chief Marshal Sir Angus Houston, salute him.
Trooper Mark Donaldson joins the ranks of Australian heroes.
But he can't wait to get away from the fuss, back to work. Would you like to go back to Afghanistan?
I'd like to go back to wherever they send me. Howard, you know, whatever job they give me, I'm keen to go and do it.
Yeah.
And as long as my mates are there for me and I'm there for my mates, you know.
Rarely are SAS soldiers allowed to reveal their identity. It's even rarer for them to give interviews. Trooper Donaldson's extraordinary story and his VC outweigh the usual protocols. But all this palaver is the last thing he wants.
To be honest with you, it makes me more nervous than going out there and doing the job. So.
The day of the battle, Mark Donaldson's unit was patrolling a remote valley in southern Afghanistan. So what's your first inkling of trouble?
Well, I guess it's, you know, there's signs and signatures that we can use. A lot of the time, you know, the women and children leave the towns, leave the villages when something's going to happen. That's usually a pretty good sign that something's going to go on. you can't tell sometimes, you know. You don't always see them. You don't always know they're there.
The Taliban had planned their ambush carefully. It was late afternoon on a winding road.
We were travelling in the vehicles at the time. We're probably spread out about 300 metres maybe. I think it was 6 vehicles. And we were travelling in the backs of the vehicles. The vehicles were pretty full up. 24 up, so 12 Aussies and 12 Yanks. And there's a few Afghanis thrown in there as well.
Surprise and the lay of the land favoured the attackers.
And there was this gully, and we were just about to drive through it, and half the cars had already gone through there. And that's when it initiated. There was lots of small arms fire, lots of 7.62 getting fired at us, machine gun fire. RPGs were exploding, whizzing past us, exploding around us.
There must have been a lot of metal in the air.
Yeah, there was a fair bit flying around. You can hear it coming past, you can see it kicking up in the dirt next to you.
But are you consciously scared in a situation like that? I mean, what's happening in your head?
You're just worrying about shooting back. You know, trying to find where it's coming from, and looking to your mates and making sure they're all right, and you know, looking around, make sure you know where everyone is.
Great point. Yeah, you don't really have that much time to be. Well, this is just my experience, and from what I observed and guys and being in contact with my team and that anyway, you don't really have time to be thinking about. Oh, I suppose you do, but you're not really thinking about yourself. You're wanting to make sure that your mates are all right, and that you can get accurate rounds back towards the enemy to regain that initiative, especially when you've been hit in an ambush. You know, all the advantage is with the enemy that's initiated it. That volley of fire, that constant barrage of small arms fire, of rockets coming in on your team and on your area can feel overwhelming, and you've got to try to win that back as hard and as fast as you can. And that's why when Mark's talking about it, he's just worrying about getting rounds back towards the direction of the enemy to try to suppress them, to try to, if you can, interrupt that volley or that rate of fire that they're putting down on you, which should clearly be extremely heavy and fast and, you know, as accurate as they can. I think a number of the team got injured, got hurt. Obviously, they disabled a few cars, so the fire coming in from the enemy is clearly fairly accurate, and it's doing a lot of damage. It's having the desired effect. It's holding them up. It's making them dig in. It's making them have to try to scramble to find cover, and people are getting hurt in the process. So, yeah, man, tough.
Lots of loud noises because there's guns going off left, right, and centre, and rifles and heavy machine guns going off. So, and then all the while you got all the bullets coming back towards you with your rockets. And I'm pretty sure there was mortars there at some stage as well. So, some of the guys have seen get shot and seen them get hit by RPG. Fragmentation.
No doubt, as he mentioned, he's seen guys get hit by fragmentation, got RPGs, small arms, and he says he's pretty sure there were mortars there as well. I'd say there probably was in the context that we had. It's amazing how organised and how much firepower the enemy can have in Iraq. They had mortars as well looking to set up, and thankfully I think one of our team members managed to take out one of those groups before they got to start lobbing in the mortars in towards our direction. So the RPGs, which are still set to airburst, were still coming our way, but thankfully they didn't judge the distance too well, so those weren't as effective as the small arms coming in. And like Donno said, you can hear and even feel that sonic crack whiz past you. You see it kicking up in the dirt in front of you. You can even, if they're getting really accurate, pinging into the car that you're in. I have to admit, I don't recall our vehicle getting hit by rounds, by small arms fire. And that's largely because I was focused on trying to sort out bloody massive stoppage that I had on the Mark 19, which was a separated case. And I had no idea that it was a separated case, and we never did any training or drills, at least not on the Mark 19 course that I did. Mark 19 is the 40mm grenade launcher, automatic, mounted on the turret, nice big weapon system, and accurate. It's an awesome piece of kit. but for whatever reason, yeah, it wasn't taught on as part of an IA or an immediate action stoppage on my course anyway. And bloody sure enough, I got one in the middle of probably the largest contact that I had been in, that I was ever involved in. Nothing in comparison to this, but still significant. And I didn't have time to bloody be looking around too much or really taking in the fire that was coming in from the enemy. I just needed to try to get the gun sorted out. And thankfully, the driver of our vehicle, big salute to him as well, Jonesy. Yeah, he was up there exposing himself just as much as me trying to help, because we needed to get that sorted. He passed me the screwdriver. Once I identified what it was, I was like, bro, give me the screwdriver. I had some tools loose in the front and he pulled it out and, yeah, helped out. So, sorry, I divert from there, but just trying to paint a picture and share a little bit of, I suppose, a small amount of experience that I've had in those moments when you're trying to reiterate what Donno's saying, getting rounds back, you're seeing your mates get hit, you're trying to do your part to win the fight back, to win the initiative back.
Pinned down under a withering fire, a large number of Mark's comrades were wounded. And this was when his actions saved a desperate situation.
If you see him in trouble out there, you go and help him out, or you go and protect him, you give him covering fire. I just ran out and was shooting my weapon and grabbed that 84mm and was the anti-armour weapon, and was shooting that back. I guess it gave the guys time to help out other fellas. I was just doing my job, like I said, that's all I was doing, and that's all you can do your job for your mates.
Humble, man. Clearly his actions would have drawn a heck of a lot of attention and fire. He picked up the 84mm that he spoke about. Excuse me. Anti-tank weapon. And, letting that thing go off whenever he did, I'm sure he fired it towards, would have left a massive signature, a massive plume. The backblast would have kicked up and he would have been easily identified in terms of where he was. And that no doubt would have drawn a heck of a lot more attention towards his position, trying to take him out. If he's, they probably would have thought he's got more of those rockets, so they want to try to get him as soon as they can. But by him doing that, man, not only is it helping to try to stem the flow, but turn the tide, it's also taking away from the mates that you heard the interviewer there say a large number of his teammates were injured. So I think he said at the start there were 12 Aussies and 12 Americans and then some Afghans with their team as well. Sounds like a big force, but when you're ambushed and you're flanked and it comes as a surprise and that massive amount of ammunition and rounds comes in and starts impacting, and it's clearly taking effect because large numbers of his team are injured, your back is against the wall. So for him to expose himself, basically saying, here I am, shoot at me, and they took that bait, it gave, like he's saying, it must have given his teammates time to get to safety or to drag each other to safety. So that no doubt there were many brave individuals on that day, just like there was on Ben Robert Smith's patrol with those machine guns. So, but here again, we've got Mark Donaldson, whose actions just stand out that little bit more above the others. And I'm sure he wouldn't see it that way. He seems uncomfortable giving this interview, but man, what a genuinely humble human being, and what how grateful we are to have men like this, men of his caliber, RS's caliber, Willie Apiata, I'll do a reaction to him, their caliber, and many others, even those that have passed, Cam Beard from the Commandos in Australia, like just many people who've lost their life, unfortunately, either been awarded posthumously a VC or Medal of Honor, or just not been presented or awarded anything posthumously, but having lost their lives. So glad that this guy didn't, and that it was a good outcome for him and his team by the sounds of things.
The battle raged on, but eventually Mark's unit was able to move to more sheltered ground. As they were doing that, His gallantry was again called upon when one of their Afghan helpers was left behind.
There was three of us who we couldn't get on the back of the vehicles at the time, and the vehicles were in a convoy, and the vehicle in front got hit by an air-bursting RPG, so it exploded just above the vehicle and sent shrapnel down towards the ground. He got blown off the back of that vehicle, and they didn't realise that he'd been blown out of the back of it, and they just kept driving.
You sprinted, was it 80 metres across exposed ground to rescue that interpreter?
Yeah, I saw him over there, so I just ran over there and got him.
But you were being fired at the time?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, it was pretty heavy and pretty accurate. It was kicking all around us, and got my arm underneath him and helped him up. And then I got him back to the vehicle.
It wasn't until the wounded had been choppered to safety and the unit had returned to base that Mark and his comrades had time to think about what had happened.
Yeah, I guess I was pretty lucky, I got out of there without getting hit, so... Yeah.
Do you put it down to anything? Are you a fatalist? Are you religious? Do you believe in luck or training?
Yeah, you got to believe in your training. That's why you train. You're a soldier, you do your job, and 50-50, sometimes you get hit, sometimes you don't.
In a party like his, your chances of coming out alive are pretty negative, and he had never got hit. That's amazing.
At the ceremony, one of the only two other living VC winners, Warrant Officer Keith Payne, who earned his medal in Vietnam 40 years ago, summed up the rare distinction of Mark Donaldson's award.
But he's just like another soldier, except he's not another soldier. He's a soldier with the Victoria Cross.
I cried, mainly because it's such a big honour and a big honour for Mark. But I really didn't have any idea of how much it would change our lives and how much it would affect our lives at the time. I just thought, wow, he must have done a really good job.
Our guest of honour is across there, Trooper Mark Donaldson, C.
Mark has lent his VC to the National War Memorial, where it'll be on display with others for a few months. He and Emma are looking forward to getting back to Perth, while the Army decides where it can best use our latest VC winner and hero.
How could you not be proud or happy about that? If someone comes up to you and shakes your hand in the street and says, good on you, good job. When your mates shake your hand afterwards and they say that you did a good job, it gives you that same sort of feeling, it makes you feel like you've done good for what you're trying to do. It makes you feel like you're doing the right thing.
Howard Gibbs with that report. And
awesome. Yeah, 100%. To have the respect and trust of your team is so important. And dare I say, I'm not going to try to speak for Mark Donaldson, but I would imagine that's probably more important to him than the VC, without disrespecting the VC at all, and the courageous people that have fought, died, earned, been awarded the Victoria Cross, and those who haven't as well, who have fought just as equally bravely, and may not have been awarded for their actions. Definitely not to discredit or take anything away, but there's something about serving in the Special Forces unit, in the SAS, or whichever Special Forces unit that you may be a part of or that you may be aspiring to join, that if you can earn and maintain the trust of your team, that is more precious to the individual than gold, in my experience anyway. There's something about that, having their trust and having their respect, in terms of the respect of being able to do the job. So cool, man. I wish this interview went longer, but that's as much as it did. I didn't have a lot to jump in and speak on, although I probably spoke more than I should have. But Mark Donaldson, actually I'll share this story to close off. Mark Donaldson, I never served with him. I never knew him really well. I got to know him a couple of times after. We did some work at the time when I was still one of the founding members of the Mill Gym in Perth. we were doing some work with the Fremantle Dockers, and then we invited Mark Donaldson in to, ask him if he would come speak with the team and that sort of stuff, and he graciously did. He had already been awarded the VC by then. He graciously came to and shared a few words, and the team and the coaches of the Fremantle Dockers team really appreciated it, as did we, obviously. And it was my first time hearing the experience in person from Mark himself. But prior to that, and thankfully, I don't know if Mark remembers, but I was in Campbell Barracks in the gym, just going to get a drink, I think, in between a part of my session. And he was in the gym, and when I was going to the fountain to get a drink, he just sort of stopped me. He goes, "Oh, hey," and pretty sure he introduced himself, and then he just asked me if I was who I was. "Are you Joe?" And I was like, "Yeah." Are you one of the owners or founders for the mill? I was like, yeah, I am. And then it was just real nice or short. He goes, "Oh man, really nice to meet you. Pleasure to meet you, blah, blah, blah." Some small talk. And I was really caught me by surprise, because I didn't know who Mark was from a bar of soap. I think he may have just recently finished cycle by that time, and so probably recently badged. Maybe he wasn't badged, I don't know, but I think he was badged by that time. We were just in PT kit and in the gym. And it was a nice interaction, very much out of the blue, as I mentioned. And it was just a brief chat. That was my first interaction with him. So he had stopped me, asked me if I was me, and then and then we just went from there. And then that was about it. I didn't really have anything to do with him. Not really. I had nothing else to do with him after that. I just thanked him for his kind words. Said, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you too. Thanks for that." And then we went our separate ways. And then it wasn't until, it would have been a few years later, when I was doing some work with the Dockers. Oh, maybe not a few years, maybe 1.5 years later, maybe thereabouts. When we caught up again, and it was awesome. So very genuine, humble man, as you can tell. Probably back then seemed, which is understandable, probably a bit nervous or apprehensive about being on the camera, and probably, like RS said, he probably was looking forward to being deployed again or going away, so he didn't have to do the PR stuff and the interviews. So joining the unit isn't something that you train and prepare for the media. But a lot of respect for him, for RS as well, for our soldiers that serve, first responders, etc. And it was nice to do this reaction to Mark Donaldson's one. So take from it what you can. I know he's done a number of podcast interviews, so I'll probably have a look at some of those where he probably gets to delve into more detail into the situation, or gets asked more questions. Anyway, take care wherever you are. Keep smashing, keep turning up. No matter what you're going through, whatever struggles, challenges you may be going through, stay in the fight. And until the next video, big mana wave.